Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined alongside Craig R. Tractenberg, a partner for the law firm Fox Rothschild. Mr. Trachtenberg works in greater Philadelphia and New York City, covering all sorts of legal duties. He works in domestic and international dispute resolution, the development of infrastructure, legal licensing policy, distribution policy. I must admit, it's already an impressive collection of duties, even before we mention your history working in franchise law to begin with. So first and foremost, thank you for joining us. We're here to talk about that history in franchise law and the insight that you can provide everybody throughout the industry. So right off the top, I would love to discuss how you really decided to specialize in the field of franchise law. When were you first getting started, and what is it that really got you interested working with franchises?
Well, I was really focused as a law student as becoming a securities lawyer. I pictured myself on Wall Street. I interviewed with all the Wall Street firms, none of which exist anymore. They all called me back for second interviews. I had judicial clerkships. I was going to take a job with an international securities outfit, and then the bottom fell out of the stock market. The offer that I thought was going to be extended to me wasn't, and I ended up working for the small boutique firm that I had been clerking with in Philadelphia. And one of the clients at that firm was then called Dunkin' Donuts. And I found out that the offer and sale of franchises is very familiar to me because it's akin to the offer and sale of securities. And I grew my legal practice with the help of Dunkin' Brands. And through all their changes, they were kind enough to keep me as their counsel. And as their counsel, I was able to attract other clients who had heard about our successes. And I'm proud to say that I, over the years, have made a lot of concepts, which were not franchising, household names today, with hundreds of franchisees and successes, making millionaires out of the common man. So it was an accident that I fell into franchising, but it was perfect for me, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity to do it and continue to do it.
I must admit, you caught on to some pretty impressive brands right off the bat in that sense. And I mean, by all means, it definitely looks like it worked out for you. So it's amazing to see all these intricacies that go into it. I mean, certainly, congratulations on seeing how everything has panned out in the recent years, anyways.
Well, I had a lot of good teachers too.
Sure, absolutely.
The franchise bar is a very close bar, and some of the competitors are close friends of mine. So it's a great legal area, and it's a great business area to practice in.
Yes, absolutely. And especially to be able to develop your insights. That's funny because that's something I immediately wanted to touch on as far as what you've picked up and viewing yourself almost as a teacher for a lot of other people that are definitely learning about the industry. Do you think that are there any challenges facing the whole collective industry of franchising? I mean, this can be kind of a post-pandemic twist, or even just the new wave of technology that we're starting to see, or even just standard business development of issues that have been the case for centuries, for that matter. As far as the legal challenges that are facing, do you really identify a lot of those, and how can you kind of help people overcome those different challenges?
Well, the most of the challenges that I see are not for lawyers to overcome. Maybe at the lobbying level, but the biggest challenges at franchising right now is the uncertainty over non-franchise issues, labor issues, taxation. The finance issues are sort of sorting themselves out, and the maturation of franchise law, thanks to all the great lawyers who have litigated these cases, is coming quite predictable. So the surprises are not in the legal realm as much as they are in the business realm. On the business realm, there are tried and true uh, formulas for success that franchise companies have used to develop. Some of those are mixed legal and business issues. Some of those are purely business issues. But right now, the biggest challenge to the franchise industry is the uncertainty over labor, I think, And I think once we solve that, everything else will work out and we'll be chugging along like we were a couple of years ago.
I feel like that's a very good thing for a franchise legal professional to be saying there aren't many surprises out there. That means that you know a pretty good amount about what you're doing. So that sounds like we're interviewing the right guy right here.
Well, I represent companies that are smart enough to avoid most of the surprises, and hopefully, if they listen to me, they have even less risk.
Of
That's my
course, there
goal.
you go. No, and it's fun to be able to develop those insights, especially when you're developing relationships with different brands and in the industry as a whole. And as far as some of the more common problems, I guess this might be something to lead into as far as definitely your job is to make sure that people avoid these surprises, whether it be on the franchisee or the franchisor side. But as far as some of the more common issues that you have noticed, and perhaps the common issues that you really try to resolve almost on a constant basis, do you feel like there are continual mistakes that different franchise brands are making? And are there mistakes that are kind of common across the board?
I would say that the mistakes, if you call them mistakes, they're not really mistakes; they're growing pains. Is the development arise out of the development of the franchise brand? Someone has a great idea. They're confident enough to turn it into a franchise. Maybe it's not perfect when they start franchising and they're tweaking it a little. There are some issues with that, but the bigger issues come with expansion, it seems to me, and the quality of the franchisees that you bring in. When you first start, you're selling these franchises to friends and neighbors. They may not be the right person for your system. And then the company that starts in New York gets an offer from Jamaica, and somebody wants the entire rights to the island of Jamaica, and they'll pay you $1 million to do this. But nobody thinks about, or maybe you haven't thought about fast enough, how are you going to supply these people? How are you going to police the brand? How are you going to teach, even with distance teaching and all the technology now, how to operate this business in Jamaica? Jamaica might be the perfect place, but you may not have the infrastructure to do it. So it doesn't have to be Jamaica. It could be California. It could be Florida. And many times the decision is made to go to the wrong place at the wrong time. The company's not mature enough or doesn't have the infrastructure to do it. I had one client that remained nameless. It's a very successful client, but they started in the tri-state area in the Northeast, and they wanted to expand along the Amtrak corridor. And they had a lot of interest in having franchisees in Florida. And because they sold a frozen dessert type of concept, they thought Florida was great. It was hot. It was beautiful. Everybody wanted to go down there. It was a seasonal business, so it's perfect for retirees or teachers or something like that. And so they went to Florida and they met good business people who wanted to relocate to Florida, and they allowed relocation to Florida. But the people who wanted to go to Florida, who were like the franchisor's management, actually wanted to retire to Florida and sort of have a retirement business. And so they didn't work the business like they would have in the Northeast. And they didn't follow the track record that they had in the Northeast because they were sort of winding down. And the temperature, even though it's hot every day, and that sounds like it's great for frozen dessert concepts, is not so good because people don't want to eat frozen dessert every single day in the winter, in the summer, unless they're in the Northeast. In the Northeast, when there's snow on the ground, people will buy this product, but not in Florida when it's 95 degrees every day with 90% humidity. So even with thinking it through, it may have not been the best idea to go to Florida. Ultimately, they did develop in Florida. They were able to screen the franchisees better. They understood the market better. But doing it early in their business development cycle probably wasn't the best idea. Those
Yeah.
are the kinds of mistakes those are growing pains.
You got a front row seat for all of these details. I like the way that you mentioned it. Not so much problems, but growing pains, seeing what goes into this. And it's just incredible to take a look at how multifaceted a lot of these issues can possibly be. And I can only imagine, that's probably part of the fun for you because no other job is the same. And there's always, you have different owners, you got different franchise brands, you got different products or services. And there's all sorts of different intricacies that you really have to weigh a lot on, which, definitely on the legal perspective, I can only imagine some of the creativity that it takes on your part. But anyways, I
Well,
do
I
want
like
to
to.
touch.
I
Sure.
like to get in the business. I realize my role is not as a business person, and it's not my money at risk. I am able to transfer the knowledge that I learned from one growing pain to another company that's about to make the next growing pain and start asking the right questions.
Yes, absolutely. And that can be invaluable to be able to get people set up. But I can only imagine that makes you look pretty good as well when you're able to develop brands
Only
like
when I'm right, and only when they admit I'm right.
that's a good way to look at it. I like it. As far as that's probably a good lead in for where I wanted to touch on. And this is kind of a vague question that I want you to be able to take this any direction you like. What is it that you love working about franchises?
Well, I really like the entrepreneur spirit and being able to harness it and talking to someone in a way that it's not just lawyer and client, but there's actually a trusted advisor relationship. And even though nothing I say about business is valid, I still have an opinion and people will listen to it. And when those things start working out, it's a wonderful thing. I have had the good fortune of making a lot of people, some who weren't even high school educated, into national entrepreneurs, and there's a development and growth there. Just like the business grows, the entrepreneur at the top of the franchisor has to grow with it. They need counseling. They may need to go to classes, charm school, in effect. They have to learn how to be a leader. And not everybody has that skill set when they're born. Very few do. Very few of us have the parents who taught us all those skills. You have to be continually educated in order to grow the business the way that it should be. And so it's the same in business and it's the same in their character. The person who leads a franchisor has to talk to people who are taking their life savings and putting it down in their vision. And the franchisor really has to have the ability to express their vision of how the customer experience is going to be in every aspect of the franchise. I like to quote David Bowie on this issue. David Bowie said, "Being a rocker means being able to control everything from the cut of your hair to the cut of your trousers." And that's the way franchise brands grow. You really have to have the vision and transmit it and make sure that it's replicated at the customer experience. So working through that and growing it and having the leadership grow at the same time helps me grow. And that's the kind of stuff I like to do.
That's a very uplifting way of looking at it, and definitely to recognize the impact and the continual development that you can have in a lot of people's lives. I can only imagine that's probably one of the more gratifying parts of your position, and that's pretty cool that you're able to always look out for people and, definitely have their best interests in mind when it comes to really developing them and getting off the ground. So, as far as what I want to touch on, kind of as a closing question, as far as the advice that you would offer any prospective franchisee, somebody that's trying to get started into this industry, or somebody that's trying to find an ideal brand that they're really looking to invest in and really kind of commit their lives to, is there anything that you would suggest for franchisee, or what are some of the more essential duties that you would recommend them putting together before they really commit themselves to a brand?
Well, I think franchisees really have to be clinical about prospective franchisees really have to be clinical about the concept that they're buying into. Yes, it's being an entrepreneur and being your own boss, but without being alone, having the guidance of the franchisor. But you really have to be clinical. Some of the franchise concepts are relatively new, not built out, don't have full track records, might not have track records in your geography. So you need someone other than yourself to listen to and evaluate them from a business point of view primarily, but also from a legal point of view if you're really getting serious. Too many people jump into franchises thinking that it's a turnkey operation. And for some people it can be, but other people have different needs or different skill sets. And they may be great intellectuals. They may be great in the securities business, but not too good at the retail business. So you have to match those skill sets, and you have to ask questions. And the other thing that I think is really important is that you have to make sure that the franchisor is going to have your back if you have a problem. And it's hard to assess that going in, but you can assess that by looking how the franchisor treats other franchisees, whether it's in this system that you're buying in or the same people, if they have sister systems, how those franchisees are treated. I'd really talk to every franchisee I could that has a relationship with the franchisor and listen carefully to what they say, because they're not likely to tell you that everything that's they don't like about it, but they will tell you anything that's really bothering them, and you'll get a feel for what the issues are, and then you can address it with the franchisor and get the confidence you need to jump in. Good idea to talk to your accountant, talk to a lawyer. I know it costs a little more, but it'll save you a lot of time, money, and parts of your life by doing it right before you jump in.
It will save you to death all of those growing pains, like you mentioned. Absolutely.
Right. It's the same growing pains with the franchisee. A franchisee may be able to open one unit, but may not have the infrastructure to open more than one that will make them, very wealthy.
Sure, absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, we have developed some absolutely invaluable insights with my friend right here, Craig R. Trachtenberg, once again representing Greater Philadelphia and New York City and representing some of the most important brands in the franchising industry. We are overjoyed to name you one of the top franchise legal players in the entire nation. We are very excited to see the impact that you continue to make. You've definitely made a huge impact on our own publications. So on behalf of our whole crew, I want to thank you for making it happen, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Justin. It's very nice of you to say. It's my pleasure.